what they said to me is that their organization has outlawed AI. I was like, what do you mean by outlawed? And they said, literally, IT have turned it off, right? So it's not anywhere in the organization. And I remember when that gentleman told me that, I was just astounded, because I think it's one of these things that you may have some hesitation going into it, but to actually say, we're not even going to experiment, or we're not going to try.
Welcome to Under the Hood.
Welcome to another edition of Under the Hood. We're here once again. My name's Tony Eades, co-founder, chief strategy officer for Salted Stone. And we've got a fantastic episode for you, as always, to kind of finish the year off. This is, of course, the podcast for marketing and salespeople and anybody that wants to grow and look at growth and ideas, and also learn a little bit more about HubSpot and what's under that gigantic hood of HubSpot. Today, we're talking about the transformative new HubSpot releases making AI a breeze. This is some of the core releases that came out of Inbound 2024 over there in Boston. We're going to dive a little bit deeper. We're going to look at the latest advancements of AI. And I couldn't do it on my own, so I've had to go far to bring in all the way from Japan. And already he hasn't today, but he's joining us, and I'm so happy to have on board for our Under the Hood podcast today, Vice President and Managing Director of HubSpot JAPAC, Dan Bognar.
Hey, Tony. Pleasure to be here. Can't say I've come from Japan, but
it'd be nice if we did, yeah.
We'll take the eastern suburbs of Sydney. But look, it's a real thrill to be here, and thanks for having me in the flesh, in the studio. I'm coming up to my second anniversary at HubSpot.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah, the cake will be out for that one.
I'm sure there'll be cupcakes or something. But it's been an absolute thrill. I've had the pleasure of leading our go-to-market across Asia Pacific and Japan, Australia being a very important market for us. So it's an absolute thrill to do that. And I've been doing CRM now I worked out the other day, it was 24 years.
24 years. Oh, it's changed a bit in 24 years.
Just a little bit. So but yeah, certainly the technology's changed a lot, and it's exciting to be here talking about AI and its applicability to sales and marketing.
Yeah, and it's really great to have you in a better HubSpot colourful shirt than I've got on, but anyway. That's good. So let's just set the scene for everybody about this fantastic. We'd love, for those of you that kind of watch the show all the time, we talk a lot about AI. So no different today, but we are going to dive in a little bit deeper. But, many teams recognize the benefits of AI, but I think a lot of them find it challenging to implement. AI is kind of either readily available, so the tools are there for people to start using, or the other more advanced tools are a little bit more complicated and they take time to learn. So I had this great stat to share. We always like to put a stat up front. 15% said they couldn't live with AI. I thought that's not a lot. I thought there'd be a little more, but as people discover it, that will go up. That's versus 6% last year. So it's already over doubled, almost tripled. That was from the Marketing AI Institute. So how do you feel marketers are actually using AI? Let's talk about content, because content's the big game changer.
Sure.
How do you feel that they're using it to help?
Well, I think the reality, Tony, we should probably acknowledge the starting point, which is there's still a lot of noise in the market and a lot of hype in particular around AI. So I think for a lot of people, they're still trying to work out, is it applicable, to what extent, what use cases? And so I think going into it, there's this sense of, how do I work out what's really valuable and what's not? From a content perspective, what we've seen is about 6% of people in Australia, based on the research that we did earlier this year, use it to write content. That's actually a lot less than we thought. So if you unpack that a little bit, on top of the 6%, there's a further 18 that use it to draft content. Yep. So that it's not necessarily a final product, but it's the input to it. And then about 45% of marketers are using it to generate ideas. So they'll take those ideas and then they'll author their own content. So we're seeing a mix of things. But I think as people just become more familiar with AI, as some of that fear and inertia goes away, I think you'll see these stats will improve greatly.
Yeah, surprising 6% only using it to write content. But often on the show, we've talked about what we call the AI sandwich, which is human, AI, human. right? Because, and like you said, there's a lot more using it to draft content or for inspiration, which kind of fits that model that the human is putting the prompts into whatever it might be, ChatGPT or whatever it is to, help come up with the idea of content, but then you have to bring the human back into it.
Yes.
And I think that's so important because if you don't, where's the human going to be if AI does it so well? What do you think are some of the reasons people aren't doing it? You kind of, said before, these numbers are growing,
yes,
but there's still some resistance.
Yeah, look, it's interesting, Tony. I had a conversation with a customer only a couple of weeks ago, and what they said to me is that their organization has outlawed AI. I was like, what do you mean by outlawed? And they said, literally, IT have turned it off, right? So it's not anywhere in the organization. And I remember when that gentleman told me that, I was just astounded because I think it's one of these things that you may have some hesitation going into it, but to actually say, we're not even going to experiment or we're not going to try and innovate or understand it. But I think if you strip it all back and say, well, what's getting in the way? Our research tells us there's three factors. Firstly is the organization itself may not have any guidelines or policies in place. Yes. And I suspect that's what drove that example I gave you. So roughly about 37% of organizations that we spoke to in Australia are saying, we just don't have the guidelines in place. That's number one. Number two is the organization might have some concerns just regarding data privacy and compliance. That's about 36%. And the remaining 36% are organizations that have concerns regarding data quality. And I think what we've learnt with AI is if the quality of data is poor, the output from the AI is going to be equally as poor. So need to flex there.
Yep.
But again, I think this will evolve over time. You'll see more organizations start to experiment. It'll probably start with specific use cases and then grow from there.
Yeah. It's interesting because all of those elements you just said, I can relate to when we're working with customers as well.
Right.
The other aspect of it, I spoke last year, actually late last year at a legal conference. And there were all these in-house lawyers in there from Coca-Cola, all these big brands. And the questions that came out afterwards were kind of like, how are you going to control this? Not regulate. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, how do we control our people? But you're right. I think you've got to start up with some AI guidelines if an organization is actually going to utilize it. I was thinking about this before we started the podcast, and I was thinking about, what's similar. If we think back to, years ago, I think it was the late 80s, early 90s when the website stuff started to come out, the internet. The problem was back then is not everyone had a computer, right? Whereas now everybody has got access to AI.
Sure.
It's at the fingertips. It's free to use in a lot of the software platforms. So that's probably the biggest, scariest part.
I think so. And I think, technology generally follows a pretty standard curve. I mean, think back to cloud computing when cloud computing came out. And tech organizations would say, oh, there's no way I'm putting my data in the cloud. And yet today, you probably don't even consider it, right? Like it's just commonplace. And so I think AI will get to that stage.
Yeah.
It's a pretty natural evolution. It's just going to take some time.
Yeah. I certainly feel for the example you gave of the person that's going to put their head in the sand and then pop up and think, oh, it's all blown away. There's no more AI. I don't think that's going to happen.
Exactly.
Now, one of the highlights for me was Damesh's Inbound keynote for Inbound. Always look forward to that and his dad jokes. Is he bringing a book out soon, or the dad jokes? Computers double in power every 18 months, but AI models are doubling every 6 months.
That's right.
Yeah, which is crazy, isn't it? It's like it is growing exponentially. Don't go where AI is now. He says go where AI is going. So I want to try and cover off some of that because I'm going to be diving into your brain and your vision of where you think it's going. But firstly, AI is now such a big part of HubSpot's ecosystem. How does HubSpot keep up with how things are going? Like just planning ahead for all of this stuff.
Yeah, look, it's a great question. I'm actually wearing my Damesh fanboy T-shirt. Absolutely. Look, he's a massive inspiration. And I think we're very lucky as a company to have the co-founder really driving a lot of the innovation, particularly around AI.
Yeah.
A great example of that was, if you remember, 2 inbounds ago, he released something called ChatSpot, which was this idea that you could ask HubSpot questions just by chatting. That's now become a really core part of HubSpot. That was announced at Inbound, which is now called Breeze Copilot.
Yeah.
So that's a sort of innovation that Damesh will do. And we're very fortunate to have him in that role. We'll talk a little bit later around some other innovations, but I think that our view is we really think there's an opportunity to have AI be this really pervasive capability embedded in the customer platform. So unlike a lot of our competitors who have kind of positioned AI as this extra thing that gets bolted on and is sold separately and licensed separately, and there's this step off to the side, we've said, no, we actually think that AI is functionality for the marketer. It's functionality for the salesperson. It's going to be functionality for the service person. And that AI functionality is going to be different depending on your role in the organization. So we've very much taken a view that AI is like this horizontal capability, if you like. We have two major spotlights, which we do every year. The Americans call it spring and fall, which translate roughly to spring and autumn. And that's where we release a lot of the innovation. And this particular round of spotlights we did was phenomenal in just the wealth of AI capability. A lot of it actually comes from our own innovation and experimentation, but actually a lot comes from customers and partners like yourself. We have customer advisory boards, we have partner advisory boards. We listen very intently to understand what are the problems and challenges you're seeing and how do we work with you on that. And then I think the last thing I would say, Tony, which I really value about HubSpot is we don't rush to monetize things. And I think AI is a great example because we've had AI in the platform now for a couple of years. We've not charged for it. We've said, here's a capability that you can leverage. It's free of charge. You can sign up to it. And the reason we did that is because we said, we're not sure 2 years ago that there's enough business value here. We think it's going to be big and we think it's worth investing in, but until we've kind of figured out exactly what this is, we're not going to monetize it. And so we gave customers access to AI, we paid for all the large language model usage and so forth, and just made it pervasive. And that's driven a lot of innovation for us as we've watched how customers are adapting.
Yeah, and what I like about that, Dan, as well, is the fact that you're actually listening to the market.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think I always find one of the downfalls of individual AI products is they just assume we're going to bring out an AI product to make life easier.
Right.
You think about video editing. There's I don't know how many, 15, 20, 50 products that do video editing saying they're better than the other one, and they leave it up to the consumer to decide, well, which one do I want and how am I going to use it? Whereas you kind of bridge that by putting it within the platform.
Yes.
And actually asking the people that are using it.
Yes.
You're kind of tying those two, technology into the user.
Yes.
Which is really
Yeah,
good.
very much so.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, let's start talking about HubSpot Breeze.
Okay.
Because we mentioned that at the beginning. We're going to make technology and AI an absolute breeze. So the brand new Breeze by HubSpot is making AI easier for marketing, sales, and even service across the whole platform. Tell us a little bit about why this is such a big deal.
Yeah. Well, I have to reference Andy Pittry because I thought that was the line of about this year. Andy got up on stage during it.
Yeah, you saw that.
And he said, you shouldn't have to be Einstein to leverage AI. And I thought, that was fantastic. It should be a breeze. Yeah, so I think that's probably where that comes from.
Yeah.
Our idea here is we want to make Breeze pervasive across the customer platform, as we spoke about. And we want it to be easy. We want it to be fast, and we want it to be unified.
Yeah.
And you heard Yamini talk a lot about why that's important for us. Easy is because at the end of the day, if it's not easy to use, people aren't going to adopt it. They're not going to use it. So ease for us means making it as simple to use without any training. It needs to be intuitive that you can just log in and start using it. Fast for us is around how quickly can we generate a return. So what we focus on is get capability in the hands of the users quickly, see how they innovate using it, and if we need to iterate later, we do that. But we want them to be able to use that capability very, very quickly. And then lastly is this idea of unified. Unified for us is when we think about AI, there's the structured data which is in HubSpot, which is a big part of what we feed into our AI engines. But the other component is all of that unstructured data that lives in the organization. Unstructured data could be chats, it could be social posts, it could be a whole range of things. And so by unifying that together into a common platform means we now have a unified set of data we can run AI against and really start to generate some really exciting insights.
Yeah, that's really good, because there's lots of data out there. We're only talking about this recently. I think I forget the stats on it, but all the data in the world is only like 90% of it or something's happened in the last 2 years. Yeah. And there's a lot of wasted out. Whenever we're working with a customer, the first thing is let's do some data cleansing. Yeah. Because, pour data in, pour data out type of thing. I saw a stat, 95% of customers say that HubSpot's AI capabilities are easy to use. So there you go. Which is great, because you've got to be able to, it's almost like I put it back, so I'm an Apple fan, hence the Apple Watch and their Apple computer, which is under there. But basically, what I like about Apple is the Steve Jobs thinking about it was kind of like, don't wait till it's 100% ready. Yes. Just get it into the hands of the users and we'll learn how they use it, and leave the other 20% to fix it up. And it sounds like it's similar in HubSpot's cases.
Absolutely. And to the point we were talking about earlier, like, we don't know necessarily yet how people are going to use AI, to the nth degree. We've got a general idea, and we're certainly releasing functionality that we think is pretty innovative. But where the rubber hits the road, so to speak, is when customers start adapting it, and we can learn from how they're using it, and then we'll iterate and release even better capability in the future.
And just to prove how easy it was, so we'll talk about Breeze Copilot. Andy put it up there on stage doing that product spotlight, and literally I thought, well, I'm just going to go. It was there in the portal, so I went in there and I actually put my sales hat on, and I thought I'm going to give it a go as a salesperson. So I found it really easy to use. Right? There's no learning. I didn't have to Google how do I turn this thing on. So what I did was I just put in there. I thought, okay, I'm just about to meet with this new customer or prospect.
Yes.
So I'm going to type in, tell me what I need to know about this particular prospect. And it listed for me not only the data that's available, like in terms of the size of the business and what they're interested in, it also told me what software they were using based on its intel. And it also told me that we'd actually done some work with them before, because it found some detail in our portal. But then I thought, okay, I'll take it one further. I thought, let's see how far this can go. So I said, okay, based on this particular prospect, give me 5 other companies like this that I could reach out to. And then it came up with 5 companies, similar in size, similar in type of industry or whatever to that. So then I said to it, okay, now draft me an introduction email, like a cold intro email, inviting them to come to a masterclass I'm running on da-da-da. That came up. So then literally I could just take that then, put that into the sales CRM and start the process of reaching out. That's kind of how I found it.
That's perfect. And that example that you've just given, you probably touched 2 or 3 different agents, which is the idea behind it, because each of these agents, they're really good at doing one thing. Yeah. So you use the company research agent, you probably use the generate content agent to draft the email. No, you may have used another one to maybe summarize something. Yeah. And that's exactly how we intended it to be used. So well done.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That was off the spotlight.
What was the response to the email?
Well, I haven't sent it yet. So I was just playing around with it, because to be honest, I haven't set the masterclass up yet. So there's no point inviting people. Although you could reverse engineer it, see how many people respond, and then set the class up. But what else is in Breeze Copilot? I mentioned a few agents there. What else?
And the idea behind it, so ChatSpot, which we released 2 years ago, is like this separate thing, separate website. So we've basically taken that now, we put it inside the HubSpot user interface. So you'll have a sort of panel that'll pop up on your right-hand side, and you can interact with HubSpot. You can ask it questions. You can ask it to generate an insight for you, the 5 companies you mentioned earlier. You can ask it to create a report for you. You can ask it to teach you how to use certain functionality in a product. There's any number of things that you can do. I use it a lot, particularly for performance insights.
Okay.
So questions that I'm always asking is, how are we tracking relative to our forecast? Which regions are doing better than others? How are our customers growing by segment in certain countries? And rather than me having to create a report and dashboard, I can now literally just type in the question and it will generate that insight for me within HubSpot, which is getting perfect.
Yeah, because normally you go into a dashboard, you either create a dashboard or find the right dashboard in a multiple range, and that's as simple. What I love about it as well, we've always been really following the idea of conversational marketing.
Yes.
I mean, this is it's using AI it's AI conversational, isn't it? Because you're actually having a conversation as if that this brainy person sitting next to you that knows all the answers, and you can just ask it to do stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you ask it to do something and it doesn't respond, or have you not found? Because you're getting all this machine learning and something back, right? So any question that someone might ask, I remember ChatGPT when it came out. People started asking, what's the meaning of life?
Okay.
But it actually has an answer for it now. I forget what it was, but it actually had pre-programmed an answer in there rather than saying, I can't answer that.
Right, okay. Well, it is learning.
Yes,
Machine learning is what Reese AI is learning as well. So, it's getting better and better. But what one of the releases we did, which I love, and every time we demo it for prospects, they absolutely, like, jaws drop, is something we call content remix. I don't know if you've seen this.
Well, not only have we seen it, we've been using it, and our draw dropped as well when we saw it. But that's fantastic. But for those that haven't seen it,
for your listeners that haven't seen it, so if you imagine you've got a blog which has either been AI generated or you may have generated yourself, and you've put it up on the website, and now what you want to do is you want to remix that content to generate a number of other piece of the content. So a great example is, how do you turn that blog into a podcast? Well, you can literally go, here's the blog, remix this content, and it'll spit out a podcast, YouTube videos. It'll create social media posts for you. It'll start remixing the campaign itself. And it literally, like when you demo that to a marketer, the marketers go, wow, that's X% of my job. That you've just taken care of. And now I can focus on the creative aspects of it rather than the authoring aspects of it. And that's where I can differentiate. So it's pretty amazing.
It's more kind of strategic thinking and less the doing, right? And that's the valuable part, because if you keep everything level, then it just becomes the same. But thinking creatively. I actually saw it do one thing on a demo where it took a video.
Yes.
And you could remix that video into editable video clips.
Yeah.
Like it actually, which is I think one of the new features, the video editor. And it was amazing. Like you could end up with these little clips that could lead to the main video, plus that same video could be used to create a blog post, because obviously you've got the audio from it.
And then you can actually edit using text.
Yeah.
And the video is self-generated. I mean, it's remarkable.
Yeah, I saw that. That's great.
And not having to have a video crew or a production side or any of those things, and just being able to, on your keyboard, create content.
Yeah, we better not upset the create. So you still need the professional guy.
But being able to give that to a very small organization that doesn't have the resources, I mean, that's just game changing for them.
So. Do you feel that, all of this stuff that's HubSpot, it's leveling the playing field? Because you've always been very much a company that's from starter or startups through to enterprise. Exactly. But now it's almost like with all these tools, it's leveling. You don't need now an enterprise company with 50 people in a marketing department when you've got a really clever small startup with all of these features.
That's exactly the idea. So we want to help companies grow. We want to help companies scale. And the way we think is the best way to do that is to give smaller organizations the same level of sophistication as the larger organization through these tools. Is kind of the thinking, and it's game changing for many of them because they just don't have the budgets, they don't have the people, and so this is a way for them to be able to really differentiate using those functionality.
And I think we all benefit as users because we get better quality content, don't we? Whether it's from a startup or from an enterprise. So let's talk about like Breeze agents.
Yes.
As we've touched on a couple of them, but what about a social media agent?
Well, that's another great one, right? Yeah. So what the social media agent will do is it'll help generate automatically for you social posts. So think of a social post as something you want to put on Facebook or Instagram or what have you. So it'll generate what it thinks is the right message for the audience that you're trying to reach. And that will lead to better engagement. And we can then generate a whole bunch of insights from the way in which the audience is interacting with that content.
Yeah.
That's a great example.
Now, of course, Dumish this is his latest love, isn't it? Agents. Well, he completely like blew me when he did his actual complete, talk about the whole, blew my mind. But agent.ai.
Yes.
So we're going away from even just the great agents within the HubSpot platform, and now you can go onto Agent AI. I played with one called the Competitor Analyst Agent, which was just one off the shelf.
Yeah.
But I just put in our website, and it came out to track the competitors, the activities, and all of that kind of how we kind of sit it in that kind of format. But then there's also Breeze Intelligence, which is taking things to another degree. Talk to us about that one.
So let's start with Agent AI. Yeah, I think what you're seeing with Agent AI is equivalent to what we saw 2 years ago with ChatSpot. So it's this thing that kind of Dharmesh created at 3 or 4 in the Mukti and released it. And the idea behind it is it's effectively like a professional network for agents, completely free of charge. You don't have to be a HubSpot customer to leverage it. But the idea is you create an account, and then there are a number of agents which you can access. And what we want to do is we want to not just be providing the agents, we want to be the platform where people that are developing agents release their agents to.
Yeah.
So over time, this thing's going to become quite remarkable. But today, for example, like from a sales perspective, we use the company research agent a lot. Which gives us a lot of intelligence on various companies we're trying to engage with. The other one I use all the time is the financial reporting agent. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, I saw it on there, but I haven't used that, so I'd be interested.
I mean, what I love about it, you can literally say, this is a company I'm going to speak to. Look at their latest filing, financial investor filing, and summarize back for me what this organization is focused on. And you'll literally read a annual report document that might be hundreds of pages and come back to you with a summary and say, this is the conversation you want to have with them, which is just awesome. So these agents are free of charge.
Yep.
There are literally hundreds of them. Over time, that'll expand significantly. And Agent AI will become this network of where these agents live. Will it end up in HubSpot? I think it will at some point. Let's see. And then you also mentioned Breeze Intelligence. So Breeze Intelligence actually, for us, is around wanting to make use of all of that data that organizations have in HubSpot. And for a lot of them, unfortunately, they have inherited a lot of contact and company level information. They may have bought some lists from third parties and put that into HubSpot again. And the reality is they've probably got some holes in the data that they have. And so Breeze Intelligence is really this idea of unlocking the data that they have by augmenting it with validated and authenticated contact details. And so it's a result of an acquisition we did about a year ago, and we can now enrich a lot of the data that you have in HubSpot, and we can also give it buyer intent signals. So we can actually take that contact level data and then show the user what the intention of that particular contact had when they were searching or looking at your website or whatever it might be. And so that's really powerful if you're selling to a customer to understand, where are they at in their journey and what sort of interactions have they had with you.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? Because I did see the buyer intent one, and I was wondering what that is. So that was it was great. And I suppose you can maybe couple that on with the finance one you were just talking about, where you can type in what's their budget. And they'll eventually be able to hopefully tell us that, so we know what we're pitching.
Okay. Who's the approver?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. How quickly can I get this signed off?
Absolutely.
What are your tips? So let's look at your recommendations. This would be good. So if you had to recommend, we've gone through a bunch of different ones. There's things like Flux Image Generator, Meme Maker. I noticed it's in there.
That's a big
one. As well as the ones that we covered. So there's a few. So check out the platform agent.ai. But if you were going to recommend one particular HubSpot feature to a marketer, let's put a marketer's hat on. What would that be and why?
It's a really tough question.
There's so much to do. You're in a lolly shop here, and you just got to choose one.
Okay.
One lolly.
I've got a really soft spot for the content remix. We've talked about it earlier, just because I think that today the reality is with so many people creating content, it's really difficult to break through, right?
Yeah.
How does your message break through and how does it resonate? And the reality is you've got to be able to make sure that your message is amplified across as many channels as possible. Really easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Very difficult and time consuming. And so the idea of just being able to go remix and it'll generate that content for you, I think is incredible. And I think wind it back to the very start of our conversation, it may not necessarily be the end point, as in the final product that you release, but it's a pretty solid draft. And now the marketer can engage by saying, okay, I'm just going to add the +1 to be able to really make that message stand out. And so I think it's going to save marketers hours and hours of time and give them time back to do what they want to do best.
And I think the other one that's in there as well is obviously if you haven't got that source material, because you might not even have something really good and juicy that you want, you've got the AI block generator, which, because there's nothing worse than someone says to you, hey, write us a blog post that it's got to resonate with the audience about X, Y, and Z, and you start with a blank piece of paper. With the AI block generator, kind of helps you brainstorm it, right, and come up with this really good blog, which then you take into Remix, I suppose, and make into everything else.
The whole thing
can be start to finish.
Generated, pretty amazing.
All right, so let's put our sales hat on. HubSpot feature, if we're in the sales lolly shop. Everything's shiny in the sales lolly shop.
Well, there are.
What are you going to...
I actually think for the salesperson, there's a lot there. I mean, we touched on before company research agent. We talked about the financial results agent. You mentioned the prospecting agent, which really helps to automate all of that research you're going to do before you start prospecting. So I think there's a lot there for the salesperson. One of the tools that I use a lot in my role is I'm always looking for insights across as many salespeople as possible. And so I use a lot of the AI summary agents, because what that helps me understand is if I've got 100 or 200 sellers, what are the types of conversations they're having with our customers and prospects? And so I could sit and listen to every call, or I could sit and read through every note. I'm never going to be able to do that. So to be able to access a summary at the end of that that's generated by AI gives me the intelligence to say, okay, I know what conversations are being had. And I can get it, not just what are they talking about, but what was the sentiment, what was the tonality of the conversation. It's a really good pulse for what's happening.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one. I know, again, a stat I read that's told me 40% of a salesperson's time is spent on admin duties, like reading through those notes, finding out, writing your email, but now all of that's kind of baked into the sales CRM that you can actually work a lot smarter, work on selling instead of the admin stuff.
That's exactly right. And I think, these summary agents, what they'll also do is not just summarize the call, but they'll actually create the actions. And so if there's an action to email Tony in 3 days' time or whatever it might be, the agent will generate that action in HubSpot for you and even go as far as automating that. So it's pretty powerful. So, if you can unlock that 40% capacity, imagine how much time your sellers are now spending with customers solving problems.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, talk about ease of use. How easy is it for a new user of HubSpot to access this new feature of Breeze?
Oh, super easy. Yep. So literally within your HubSpot account, all you need to do is you need to just opt in to beta features. What that'll allow you to do is it basically give you access to a whole lot of public betas that we have. Breeze is part of that. And once you've opted in, you'll have access to all of these different tools, and they'll be within your HubSpot portal. Once you're in HubSpot, what you want to do is you want to look out for there's a diamond-looking icon, and that's effectively the icon for Breeze. And so whenever that pops up, that's suggesting that there's an AI capability that suits the task you're working on. Right. So click on that, and away you go.
Wow. Yeah, it's super easy. Now, there was some, we said some stats before about people that are maybe new to HubSpot, but certainly new to AI and the resistance. So what resources does HubSpot have to just kind of handhold some of these people when they get in there? Even though it's easy to activate, how can they learn more to get the most out of it?
Yeah, sure. So look, we do a bunch of things. I mean, we run our own webinars pretty regularly where we're helping people come up to speed with new functionality that we're releasing on HubSpot Academy. You can therefore access a lot of content and videos and how-to guides. We're regularly releasing spotlights that we talked about earlier, which is those product updates. I always tell people, speak to your partner. Because I think partners have a pretty good appreciation for not just a product, but they understand the customer mindset, right? So they really...
And we're talking HubSpot partners now, not your actual partner. So, yeah. Well, I don't think she would know anything. You just told yes. Helped us. Oh, well, you might get some real deep answers there on don't touch AI.
Different. But yeah, no, absolutely, your HubSpot partner. Because I think the HubSpot partner knows you, and then they know the product. And so they'll be able to really focus on, this is the right AI tool to suit your use case. So leverage the partners as much as you can. And then don't be afraid to experiment. That's the thing I always tell people. Yeah. You're not going to break anything. All right. All you're going to do is you're going to unlock something that you may not have come across before. So try it.
Yeah. All right, well, we're here today talking about where AI is now, and it's probably changing since we probably recorded this or whatever. So we're going to kind of look to the future. We'll have a bit of heat from the lava lamp, and I'm going to ask you, HubSpot have great strides in building AI into the platform. What is your hope for the future of AI around, say, sales and marketing?
Yeah.
Where do you see us going?
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting question. I mean, I think we're kidding ourselves if we think we actually know the answer to that question.
That's right. Yeah.
Because it's changing so regularly. Look, for me, I think the big question on the back of everyone's mind is, what does it mean for me? What does it mean for my job? What does it mean for my children's job, etc.? And I think that the reality is a lot of what we're talking about is around augmenting the human experience. And I think that's really important because we're not saying we're going to replace anyone. It's about what's that 40% of the sellers that I can unlock. Yeah. The marketer that's spending all that time, just drafting content, can I unlock that? So I think for me, it's about unlocking that promise so that humans can focus on the value that we bring, which is the creativity and that sense of passion and understanding. I think if AI can deliver that to us, I genuinely think to use that sort of expression, the world will be a better place.
Yeah.
Because I think we'll take a lot of the drudgery out of day to day. I think from an agent perspective, my view is agents will become so pervasive that we won't even realize we're using them. Right? They'll be today we say, there's an app for that. I think there'll be an agent for that. There'll be so many agents that they'll just sit there in the background doing a bunch of stuff. They'll work much more collaboratively with each other, which I think will be very powerful. And I think that AI will really start to show up a lot in terms of the journey that customers go on. And I think that journey will become far richer, far more personalized, far more pointed in terms of recommendations that we're able to give at scale. I'm very optimistic about it. I think we've really only scratched the surface.
Yeah, it's interesting because, there's something like, I don't know the latest count because it goes up, but the last time I looked, it was like 7,000 plus AI tools that are out there. So for someone that's in business, that's thinking, okay, I need to get into AI, if you don't think smart, or if it's not embedded in the platform that you're using like HubSpot, and you haven't got a real strategic thought of how you want to use it, you wouldn't know where to start. No. You've got this smorgasbord of 7,000, some of which do the same thing.
Yeah. And it can be overwhelming.
Yes. Well, it would be.
Yeah. And going back to your question earlier, like if you're worried about where's your data going, these 7,000 tools and which ones of them can you trust?
Yeah.
Well, that becomes a really difficult question. Yeah. If you know, well, I trust HubSpot because that's where I put my customer data. Now I can use the AI capability from HubSpot to leverage that capability. Those concerns go away.
Yeah.
I would say sign up, opt in.
Yeah.
Use those beta features as much as you can and experiment. See how it takes you.
I like that. Product association is so true because all of these are names that you've never heard of before. You don't know who's behind them. You don't know. You start investing in them. You don't know if they're going to be a year from now. Think about Betamax and VHS back in the day. And, if you just gone and bought your whole video library in Betamax and then obviously didn't go anywhere, VHS back in those days, now DVDs passed and we just keep moving forward. So go with a brand that you trust. I know a bit. That's all you can say. I don't know what you're talking about. So don't forget, folks, you can jump into agent.ai, free to jump in. I've already done it. Of course, Dan was telling us, you just get in there, have a go. Get started with HubSpot. It's pretty easy. You can start with a starter customer platform. That's start a sales hub, start a hub, service hub, content hub, ops hub. get in there and play with that from, I believe, $18 a month or around that, depending on what currency, because this goes all over America, whatever. But check it out, HubSpot.com, or hit us up for a demo. Always happy to share the love of what we've been going through, same as I'm sure the team at HubSpot. We'd love to show you some of this great stuff. But we're going to pause for a second because we need to dive into a special toolkit part, which you've got one to share and I've got one to share. So this is our segment called The Toolkit. So yes, it is our toolkit segment, and we always ask our guests to bring in or talk to, because obviously often it's not virtual, it's not actually in a physical toolkit, unfortunately, but we discuss an interesting or topically relevant tool that they've been using. Dan's going to tell us his in a second, but I'll tell you the one I've been playing around with. It's called Evolve, without the E, so EVOLV.ai. Now, basically this one, because we're always like building websites and stuff. That's a lot of stuff we do. And the interesting thing, like websites keep evolving, but your website is normally the place that people go to, and the whole thing starts to, if it's not optimized properly, you could be missing out on that engagement of people. So Evolve.ai can actually see where UX opportunities are happening in your customer journey. It shows contextual recommendations on the web pages in real time using behavioral analytics. So it's intelligent prioritization also allows you, because obviously it's going to ping up a whole bunch of things like fix this, do this, have you tried this, have you tried that? But it helps you by looking at the potential impact that change will make on engagement or the bottom line. So you can prioritize the experience and optimize it fast. Again, as we've spoken a couple of times about, it's machine learning, right? So the more it's working on your website, the more it's learning about your customers and the use of it. So it will come out with more and more precise recommendations over time. A quick practical use case, so Landel Green Parks use this. They offer a variety of resorts across the Netherlands and Europe. Highly competitive market, everyone's looking to go on holiday. So they wanted to increase conversion. So over 2 months, they tested 4,600 combinations that Evolve came up with them, just basically saying, try this, try that. And then they did that over 16,000 visitors over that two-month period. The best performing combination increased bookings by 127%. So it definitely works. So try that one out, evolve.ai. But what have you brought in?
Well, it was interesting. So I was thinking how to best to answer this question. So if you think about, cast your mind back to the Spotlight and Inbound.
Yeah.
So when Andy was demoing the content remix, he had a video that was created, and you saw him kind of quickly edit the video and it generated. So that's through an app called HeyGen, and we integrate with HeyGen. And so I'd actually never heard of it until I got to Inbound. But so we have a very large part of our business in Japan. And in full transparency, I don't speak a word of Japanese. And very few of our staff in Japan speak English. So we have this real challenge communicating. It's gotten better through, Google Translate and those sorts of tools, like when you're on Slack and email. But I regularly want to send out some sort of video message to them. And it's been challenging. And so we hit an innovation a couple of months ago where I recorded a video in English, and then we managed to translate some subtitles into Japanese. And we thought, okay, that was a big step up. But then when I saw this demo, I was like, well, I could actually use this. And I think HeyGen supports something like 137 languages. So literally what we did is I created an avatar of myself. Yep. It took me about 2 minutes, record a video, and then I drafted the script in English of what I wanted to say, loaded it up into HeyGen, and it generated a Japanese version of me speaking flawless Japanese to our team in Tokyo. And I was like, wow. And I sent it, I had somebody proofread it or proof listen to it, and we sent it out to the team. I mean, they almost fell to the ground. I mean, it's because, well, my mouth is moving, it's my voice, and it's flawless Japanese. And so that was pretty powerful. And so I'm starting to use that a lot now. And so being able to do that is game-changing.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So what's the response been from Japan or anybody you sent it to?
I mean, overwhelmingly positive, right? Because I think what it shows is you've taken the effort to be able to communicate in their language, which is always appreciated. It was quite funny because a bunch of them slacked me and said, I had no idea you spoke Japanese. So I had to fess up and say, no, it's actually not me, it's my avatar. But it was really powerful because it's my words, it's my gestures.
Yeah, your mannerisms and everything.
Right?
Yeah.
Speaking Japanese.
Yeah, you just need the live version for when you actually do fly over to Japan.
Exactly.
They meet you at the airport and expect that fluency to flow. Maybe that's next with HeyGen. Terrific. Well, this has been a great catch up with Dan Bognar. We've been going through everything about, well, not everything, because there's a whole, we could be talking forever, more than that, and there's a lot coming, which is good, about all the releases from inbound this year, and certainly around Breeze and some of that exciting stuff. So, Dan, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a really interesting conversation. Thanks
for the invitation.
Yeah, thanks for coming all the way from Maroubra.
Okay. Not Japan.
Not Japan this time. Maybe next time we do one in Japan. Now, of course, Under the Hood Season 4 is going to take a bit of a break because we're coming up to the end of the year. It is the end of 2024, but we will be back bright and sparky in early 2025. Of course, after the holiday season. But if you want to subscribe and make sure you don't miss out on future episodes, please go to the link that you'll see below and subscribe to make sure that we keep you up to date with all this great stuff, especially all this new AI stuff that's changing all the time. And of course, you can check out any episode that you might have missed by going to our Under the Hood webpage, even season 1 through to 3. We're in season 4 now, but there's a lot that you've missed that you can catch up on. So make sure you do. But season's greetings, Happy New Year whenever you're watching this from all of us at Under the Hood. And don't forget to make growth a breeze in 2025 with HubSpot. Then good luck with all of that. But thanks for watching.